Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission for April 25th, 2019. If you have a cell phone with you, now's a good time to turn it off. I'm going to turn mine off. If you have an item on the agenda that you wish to address, you'll find on the table out in the hallway, you'll find some forms like this. If you would fill one out and give it to our clerk, that would be really helpful for us, both for the process as we're moving through the meeting and also later for our records. For those of you who are joining us perhaps for the first time, the way this works is we have a few things we'll take care of here at the beginning, and then when we get to the portion of the docket where we hear each case in turn, we will call the applicant up, ask them for their name and address, ask them what they're here to request of us. We may have questions for them. We'll ask if there's anybody else who wants to be heard on that item. If so, they can come forward and give us their name and address, and we'll go through that same sort of process with them. Then we may talk amongst ourselves and call each thing for a vote in turn. We'll start with before we start today, for those of you who may not yet be aware, our planning director is leaving us to become an assistant city manager, not going very far, but she's leaving us, and I had a few things I wanted to say about her today. We'll see if she and I can both get through it without crying. Aubrey Mcdermott has been just a real gem. She really has in this position. Her passion for what she does, her love of planning, just shines through everything she does. She is a consummate professional, and she is a dedicated problem solver. She's a caring coworker. And I imagine many members of her staff think of her as a friend as well as a boss. Yet, she never has a problem getting things done. As accomplishments go, the award-winning Plan OKC would have been a career-defining achievement for anybody, but it was and is an enormous, innovative step forward for the city of Oklahoma City, but it's been only one of many accomplishments that Aubrey is responsible for. She's had really a remarkable positive impact on the city and on the planning department for the amount of time that she's been there. She's promoted a standard of professionalism that has radiated through her department like a pebble dropped in a pond. She really just champions an open-mindedness and a willingness to seek out and hear the opinions of others. Some people have open-door policies. Aubrey has an open-mind policy, and it has really served her and the city of Oklahoma City well. She's championed interdepartmental cooperation and coordination that's improved the end product of service for the citizenry, the development community, and for the members of the staff, not only of her department, but other departments. She has a vision of kind of the interconnectedness of the missions, goals, and functions of the various departments, as well as the sections within her own department. And I think it has really served us all very, very well. I've never worked with anybody more committed to inclusion than I have found Aubrey to be. She's responsive to the concerns of everybody she works with, and she takes it on and she figures it out and she comes up with a solution. And rather than pursuing an agenda and kind of shaping the input she gets to make that fit and make it work, she really does approach things with a very open mind, and that has really resulted in a lot of innovation in the planning department that just hadn't been there in the past. She's been a wonderful planning director, a responsive and energetic secretary for the Planning Commission, and I'm guessing you're a pretty great boss. She'll take all of those qualities with her to the city manager's office, where I'm sure she'll be as big a success at her next job as she has been at this one. We'll miss her, but luckily she's not going too far. So. Well, we will really, really struggle along without you for a while, even though she has a successor waiting in the wings to be interim planning director while we search for a permanent solution to that problem. And I'm sure we'll manage somehow.
Thank you. I appreciate everything that you've said. This has been the best job I've ever had, most amazing career. I love what I do, and I would not give up doing what I do for anything else other than being able to continue to do what I do in a different role with the city, and not in any other city. This is my city. I love Oklahoma City. I'm going to continue to help Oklahoma City and still be involved in all of this. And then you're in Jeff Butler's capable hands. He'll be the interim planning director, and he's here today. He's going to observe the meeting, and the next meeting he'll be sitting in this chair. But really have learned so much, and I'm still going to bring the open mind and all of those things that you so kindly said about me to the new position. But I appreciate those words very much. Thank you.
Well, you deserve them all. So.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Okay, back to business. The first item on the agenda is the receipt of the minutes from the April 11th, 2019 meeting.
I move approval of the April 11 minutes of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to receive the minutes of the April 11th, 2019 meeting. Would you cast your votes, please? I knew there was somebody missing. Okay, they're received. A lot of to-do for nothing. We have continuance requests.
Okay, we have 5 requests for continuance from the applicant for item B20 through B24 on your agenda. Item B20 is for KC 7064 to defer that to May 23rd. Item B21 for case V18 also defer to May 23rd. Item B22 for case PUD 1693 defer to May 23rd. Item B23 for case PV 105 has been withdrawn. And item B24 for case SPUD 1102 has also been withdrawn.
Is there anybody here today that thought they wanted to be heard on any of those items? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move to approve continuances as read.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue items 20 through 24. Would you cast your votes, please? They are continued.
We also received 1 new request for continuance for item B18 on your agenda for case PUD 1722 to actually withdraw that, not continue it, withdraw it.
Is there anybody here today who thought they wanted to be heard on item number 18? Is that right, 18? PUD 1722. If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to, what are we doing, approving the withdrawal, or we're just voting to withdraw it? Yes. Item number 18. Would you cast your votes, please? It is withdrawn. The next items we have on the agenda are items that are fairly routine, for which, oh, I'm sorry. Are there any other continuance requests? No? So the next item on the agenda is the consent docket. These are items that are relatively routine in nature, for which there's not objection that has been expressed prior to the meeting, and so we vote on them as a group rather than individually. Would you read those for us?
Sure. There are 4 items on the consent docket. Item 1 is case CE 990. It's to close a utility easement in the Spring Creek Office Park. Item number 2 is CE 991 to close the utility easement in the Still Meadows Phase 4 plat. Item 3 is case PC 10580 to rezone 4914 South Shields Boulevard from the R1 Single Family District to I1 Light Industrial. And item 4 is case PC 10581 to rezone 9521 Southwest 15th from the AA Agricultural District to Single Family R1 District.
Now, I have a number of people signed up here to speak on item number 4, and it's my understanding that we're going to pull it off of the consent docket. So I'll take a motion on items 1 through 3.
Move approval, items 1 through 3.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve items 1 through 3. Would you cast your votes, please? They are approved. So we'll go through items to be heard separately, and we'll start with item number 4.
Do we need a motion to move it?
Do we?
Item number 4?
Do we?
To move it on to items, okay. Item number 4 is case 10581. Application by Cheryl Denny.
Give us your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Lance Wendell, and address is 600 South Washington in Ardmore, Oklahoma.
And tell us what you're asking
Hi.
for.
Thank you. I'm here today to ask to rezone. It's an approximate 40-acre tract there just north of Southwest 15th. Beside the Sunnybrook subdivision, it's currently zoned AA, and I'm asking to rezone it to R1. We conducted a neighborhood meeting last Tuesday, a couple of nights ago. We had 7 folks show up to attend that meeting to talk about this rezoning, and they were primarily from the Sunnybrook subdivision. There were a couple of other folks that showed up from some adjacent subdivisions. We invited our 300-foot list and also a couple of the homeowner associations from some adjacent subdivisions. They had several concerns. One of their primary concerns was drainage. It appears that a lot of the water from the Sunnybrook subdivision does drain west into the area that we're looking to rezone, and they were concerned about how that drainage would be dealt with. They were also concerned about traffic. Its Sundrop Place kind of was originally designed to tie into the area that we're looking to rezone, and they were concerned that if that continued to tie in, that traffic from the new subdivision would pass through their subdivision in order to get onto Morgan Road, and that would create traffic issues. And then they were also concerned, because I am being upfront, I intend to apply for tax-exempt bond financing to build single-family homes there, and there was some concern that that was not the type of housing that they would like to see on those 40 acres. I attempted to address their concerns with engineering, obviously making sure that my engineer would have to address any stormwater runoff or flow across the property. We would have to get it off our property and potentially detain, and then whatever my engineer designed, the city's engineer would have to approve. I talked about traffic. It's my belief that the city is going to make me tie in, or at least planning and zoning, or the city staff would make me tie in Sundrop Lane, and so that's not something that I, as a developer, control or be in part of the zoning. And I was honest that, yes, I do intend to apply for this financing, but I'm also an open market for-sale home builder. I've built all across the state besides the big cities, and so whether I get that financing or not, I'd still like to rezone this to R1 to be able to build single-family homes. I also pointed out at their meeting that basically I'm just looking to rezone right now from agriculture to single-family homes. R1 is the exact same thing as the subdivision that they're currently residing in, so I'm not coming up with an industrial or a commercial or any kind of strange use. I'm just looking for the exact same zoning that they have now in their subdivision. And they did kind of all agree at the end that if it's not going to be able to stay agriculture, R1 is probably the least concerning zoning that could be applied for. So at this point in time, I'm asking the Planning and Zoning Commission to rezone that 40-acre tract from AA to R1.
Do we have any questions of our applicants? I do, as I said, have several people signed up to speak. If you'll take a seat, thank you. And I'll try not to butcher these names, too bad. Is it Jerry Seinard?
My name is Jerry Sinard, S-I-N-A-R-D. I live at 1412 Softwind Avenue in the Sunnybrook Edition. As the man from LW described, we do have a drainage problem. When Sunnybrook was built, they put no storm drains in Sunnybrook. They put a crown in the middle of Sunnybrook, so one side could drain one way, one side could drain the other. And then they all drain east, he said west, they all drain east into the 40 acres that he plans to develop. They use gravity. I live on the far east side. I don't know if you can see let me see if I can get this to work here. I live right here. All of this part of the neighborhood, all of our yards flood because the farmer comes back here when he plows, he pushes the dirt up against the fence, and all of our area floods back here. So we had to knock holes in our fences and dig troughs into the field to keep it from flooding. He also said, he was talking about the traffic. It's going to come in off of Morgan Road onto Bluebonnet, make this terrible jog right here, come down Bluebonnet, turn on Softwind, and come into this dead end, which is a drainage. The city has chose to use this as a drainage for all this area here to drain into the field, and this area drains into a storm drain right here, and then drains into the field here. So drainage is a real issue. We flood quite a bit at this intersection. Get this going again. At this intersection right here, it floods regularly. Now, of course, the traffic we discussed. There's also a giant oil field supply company right here that constantly has dust and chemicals and so forth. That would be a problem, I think, for this area. In our meeting, he told us that the area is going to be approximately 160 rental homes, rent with the option to buy. You live in the homes for 5 years, paying $875 a month rent. After 5 years, a portion of your rent for the next 10 years goes toward a down payment on the house. After 15 years, you have the option to own the home. That's kind of strange to me, kind of like a rent-to-own car place. Really, I've been there 23 years in this neighborhood. Most of the people have been there since its inception. Very few people move. And it just doesn't fit our neighborhood, our area. There's homes being built everywhere out there, and 160 rent-to-own homes just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I spoke to a realtor last evening. He bought a bunch of rental homes during the housing bust. He wants out of them. He said it's a nightmare. And now to have 160 more that are nothing but rentals is just a bad thing for our neighborhood.
We don't actually have any control over that. Any one of us could rent our home to someone, probably. Really the only question for us is whether this piece of ground is an appropriate place for single-family residential homes.
But the main thing was the rent-to-own thing.
We don't have any control over that. And whether they're rentals or whether they're owner-occupied, it is really not part of our decision-making calculation.
He did make a comment that he's got a couple of other projects that he has currently working. And so far, only 20% of his people that rent past 5 years. And he made it very clear, if it doesn't work, I can just walk away, and the people that own the bonds will take care of it. So he can just walk away from the deal. It's kind of scary.
Still has nothing to do with zoning.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Martin Colbert, or should I say Colbert?
No.
Hi, my name is Martin Colbert. I live in the Westbury South Edition, have for 25 years. I don't know if I'm wasting your time on this, but I'm concerned about the type of house they put up. I know that they want to zone it for single-family housing, but the people in Westbury, North and South, have taken a serious hit the last few years because of what people have done with their golf course, the other housing on Westbury North Side. When they put up a cheaper house like that, it just devalues our homes. We're not against rezoning the properties. I want to know what type of house this gentleman wants to put up. I want to know if it's going to be standard framing. I want to know if he's going to use brick veneers or siding, and if he does, I just want to know what quality he's going in. If he's going to have sidewalks, if he's going to have porches, just something we need to know in our neighborhood.
Did you attend the neighborhood meeting the other night?
No.
Oh, so I
was told what was said, though.
I'm sure the applicant would be more than happy to sit down with you and tell you about what his housing product is. There are certain standards for the city of Oklahoma City that he has to meet. The question of whether he'll have sidewalks and so forth.
Right.
That's all governed by code, so.
I guess my question was, when he gets this rezoned, is there going to be another meeting that we could attend to ask these questions?
Well, I suppose that will be up to the applicant, whether he wants to have another meeting between now and city council.
Well, there would be another opportunity. As they move forward with the development, they're going to have to plat the property as well.
Yes.
Correct. The first phase of this is development, or the rezoning aspect, so you'd get noticed again when they go to plat the property, if that answers your question.
Okay, that answers my question.
To be fair, when we're considering plats, we don't generally stop and talk about whether the houses will have porches or, whether they'll have brick veneer or, that's not part of that consideration process.
Just another time to get in front of the developer, though, before they can come here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what we're asking for.
I'm sure that the gentleman who's here representing the applicant will be more than happy to sit down with you and answer your questions.
Very good. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming down. Judy, thank you.
That's how I can tell if their solicitor's calling me or not. My name is Judith Treckler. I live in Sunnybrook. I have for the past 20 years. I'm also a realtor. What are you laughing at, Ward?
It's a good line to use that.
Okay. Number one that has not been brought up is I received a postcard probably about 7 days ago, which was followed up by a letter. There's other people that never received a postcard. There are several people, even here, that received a postcard 2 days ago. So I am saying, number one, the lack of notice was poorly executed. The same thing was done when they turned just south of us on 15th Street, when they turned the current floodplain into, it's now duplexes. They wanted to put apartments there. But it's like the notice lacks. I don't know if they just throw them out in the wind and hope a pigeon catches it or what, but the effect of the neighborhoods, they should be all notified at the same time so that we can get together and talk it over. That's my first.
Let me address that for you. Notice requirements are set by statute. It's required that rezoning requests give notice to any property owner within a 300-foot radius of the property that's being rezoned. The applicant has to provide the city with a certified copy of the mailing addresses from the, and I always get this wrong, county treasurer or county assessor. And they're mailed out in that way. Now, those are not always the people that are living in those houses for one reason or another. It's the address that's on file at the county.
Correct.
So.
And I'll add to that, we find a lot that county assessor's mailing address is different than the mailing address or the actual address of the home. So a lot of people use some other address, whether they have an agent or whatever. And people need to be checking those as well.
Okay.
Are you within 300 feet? Oh, yeah, you showed us your
6
property.
inches, yes, yes. So that's why I'm saying the notification process, number one, the 300 feet shouldn't even be there. It should be a little wider, but we're not here to discuss that.
I'll ask staff to double check the notice on this matter as it goes forward, so.
Okay. Number two, it's already been addressed, but I'm going to bring it up again. Once again, we'd like to see the engineering plans on how they going to lay out, get the water away from our subdivision.
And I'll just say about that, that is a common request.
Okay?
Our system is really not set up to do that. We rely upon the city engineers to work that out. The zoning step of this is kind of the first step in this process. Generally, developers have not done the engineering that will ultimately have to be done before they can turn dirt or before they can get their permits. That process is, something that is open to the public, but there's not a kind of open hearing or meeting. It's something that you would really need to follow up with engineering on.
I understand that, and you have to understand that a home is probably a family's and an individual's largest purchase, invested interest. So that's why we're asking these questions.
I get that.
And the liability issue, and saying again at the last meeting, he said if it doesn't work, he'll walk away. We've kind of looked up information on him. He doesn't have the best grade average, and I'm going to leave it at that. With the vested interest of the homeowners, there's a lot of things, and I'm not a member of the council, so I don't know how they go, but we want, if a neighborhood goes in, we want it to be finished on a timely basis. Across the street from that area currently, there's a strip mall that's been building for over 5 years now. And as you can all understand, a housing addition, a strip mall, any building that stands unfinished is not to the best of anyone's interest, okay? And so again, back to the limited time to finish. And that's about all we have. I do have signatures of folks that are totally against it. If anybody wants those, I can present those to you.
Would you please? Give them, yes, thank you. On your latter point, I will just say there is, again, a process by which once construction is begun, it must be pursued in a timely manner. There certainly are opportunities for extensions, and there's all kinds of unforeseen delays that can occur, but that is really not part of our consideration here today.
We're just interested in the notification, because from point one, the notification was not done properly. The man backs up to the property. He received no notification. The reason most of the folks found out about this was us few that got it, put it on the neighborhood Facebook part of the addition and let the neighborhoods know. And it not only affects our neighborhood, which is a change I know as voters we'd have to get together, but I think notice should be given within like a 2-mile radius, because it affects a lot of neighborhoods when something like this is done. Thank you for the time.
You know what I will do? I have, since the three of you who signed up here to speak today, and even with respect to the names on your list, I'll ask staff to double check the mailings for those against the notice that was sent, and see if we can find out sort of where we stand with respect to the notice. This, if it moves forward today. I'm sorry, would you come back to the...
I said the main reason probably today, if we could accomplish anything, was maybe to defer so we could get together as a neighborhood and talk about what is happening because it was rather rushed and pushed through for all of us. Okay?
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely.
Did you get notice of the community meeting too, or no? Not,
I did.
okay, so did you attend the community meeting too?
No, I had an appointment.
Okay.
It was like the day before.
That's when you got notice about it, was the day before?
Yes.
And
I actually suggested they called what used to be my old office to say, can we have a meeting there? Which I thought was pretty cool. We no longer have that office. And I suggested to my broker, who is also here, I said, there are plenty of hotels. See if you can rent space from them to go over it, and therefore we can find out the details. But it happened, notice, it was just like boom, boom, boom. And I don't know about you all, but my week's usually booked up like 3 or 4 days in advance. I don't sit home knitting too much, okay?
So about that, and I'll tell the commissioners
About knitting,
here as
I
well.
don't knit. I've never knitted.
We met with Commissioner Coffey, and I met with the applicant Wednesday. Was it last Wednesday? And, you know, it's not actually a part of our standard requirement, I'll put it that way, requirement, that every applicant, you know, contact everybody and sit down with them. But we suggested to the applicant in this case that he would want to do that, given the proximity of your neighborhood and others. And so we were aware that it would be very shortly before the hearing, if that were to occur. We also suggested that he contact your neighborhood association.
There is no HOA.
And so that makes it a little bit more difficult also to
Correct.
get the word out. So it's not that we're not aware or...
No. I walked the streets last night and handed out over 30 pieces of information that I got from the meeting the other night to let my neighbors know. So there are ways to let us know. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming. Did you have something else you wanted to say? You'll have to come forward if you want to speak. I'm sorry. This is being televised, and if you don't speak into the microphone, no one can hear you.
Again, my name is Jerry Sinard. Where do we find out, since this has been farmland since God created heaven and earth, I mean, there's nothing out there but farmland. There's no plumbing, nothing. Who pays for all that's needed out there, the drainage, the streets, the sidewalks, the OG&E? Who pays for all that needs to be done to turn that into a housing project?
Well, various entities. The streets will be put in by the developer. The utilities, to the extent that they already exist, are being paid for by the city of Oklahoma City. To the extent that they have to be extended, they'll be paid for by the developer. OG&E and ONG are on their own.
So he'll have to pay for all the sewage and all the drainage, everything?
It's all part of the deal.
All that, okay. And another thing, I can't remember. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, sure.
Jared, will you spell your last name?
Sinard. S is in Sam. 1412. Software.
I'm actually looking it up on the county assessor on my phone to see what the mailing address is.
Now, see, we're in kind of a quandary out there, too, because we're Canadian County and Oklahoma City.
Right.
And Mustang and Yukon. We're kind of the, pardon the word, bastard of the community out there.
Yeah.
We're all of them, with Bethany zip codes. So it's kind of a strange area. But like I say, I've been there 23 years. The average person on my block has been there 20 years. And another thing we forgot to mention, and that really has no effect, about 30 or 35% of our neighborhood is Vietnamese, and they don't come out. They hold everything close to the vest. I'm friends with a lot of them. I do a lot of work for them. I was a land title examiner for a number of years, and so I do a lot of paperwork for them and help them with their Medicare and that type of thing. But I asked them yesterday, will you come with me today? No. You know, they're afraid of government. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that in. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you coming, and we're glad you're not afraid of government. Did you have something else to say?
Question, and it's a follow-up. As he says, we're in Oklahoma City, Canadian County, because I got called down here to be on jury duty, and I told them I wasn't in Oklahoma, but I had to sit here all day before they dismissed me. So, once the streets are put in, who maintains those streets?
There'll be public streets.
Okay, so right now those streets aren't even maintained in our neighborhood. We've got like 11-inch gaps with grass growing through them. Morgan Road, you can't go speed limit because you'll get thrown off into the ditch. They did do a great redo on the intersection of Morgan and 40 because we get a lot of truck traffic now down 15th Street. But as far as the neighborhood streets, they're not kept up at all. Nothing has been done in the 20 years I've lived here. So my question is, I guess, how can you maintain another new neighborhood when the existing neighborhoods aren't being kept up?
So Southwest 15th Street is a major arterial. From our point of view, the addition of this number of homes will not add any measurable, I'll say, additional stress on that system. Not enough for us to, well, I won't speak for the commission on that. We'll see how that discussion goes.
Okay, because 15th Street when I moved in was a dead end. The bridge hadn't been put in yet. South where the duplexes are, Southwest 16th and all that was vacant land. Canadian County actually mowed the side streets. Then when they put the road in, they didn't bother to tell us. But we also take care of the land behind our house, even though it's not our house, our land. So we mow behind our fences for the city. So that would be my concern as a follow-up to his statement. Thank you again.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Mr. Wendell? In light of the number of individuals who have spoken at this commission hearing, and I've also received several calls of concern from individuals who didn't know about the meeting, would you be willing to continue this for a couple of weeks until May the 9th?
My concern about that is I do intend to apply for financing that does have a deadline on it.
I understand that, but I think probably there are just numerous individuals who just not had the chance to give their input or to hear what you have had to say that we have had an opportunity to hear.
And it may be that a short delay now will save you more time later, so.
Fair. If that's what the commission thinks is the best, then certainly I'd be happy to entertain it.
That would be my recommendation,
Okay.
to continue it for 2 weeks.
Okay.
So is that a motion?
I make that motion to continue this for 2 weeks.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue item number 4 until the 9th of May. Would you cast your votes, please? We'll hear it on the 9th of May.
Okay. Moving on to items requiring separate vote, item number 5 is case SPUD 1117 to rezone 2410 Northeast 23rd Street from SPUD 718 to SPUD 1117.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant who is here with us, Justin Dill. This is an SPUD application that would allow for the development of a Dollar General store. This is a bit odd in that when you look at Spud 718, which is what the site's current zoning is, it actually allows all of the uses that we seek through this application. When you look at 718, it allows for far greater uses than this SPUD. This SPUD actually limits permitted uses to just two, that being the food and beverage retail sales and retail sales, the two use units that would be necessary for a Dollar General application. So the reason that we're here for a Spud is because there were some things within the current Spud in terms of height and setback from the west that we couldn't make work with this development. What was originally proposed through 718 was a gas station. And so I think what we have is really a downzoning. We're removing alcoholic beverage retail sales, we're removing convenience stores, we're removing eating establishment use units, both large and small gasoline and personal service. So we're removing multiple use units to allow for a development that, again, is already permitted by right today, except it allows 16 feet in height. We need 20 feet in height. There was a 15-foot setback from the western line for some reason, although our building will be 15 feet off. What we are seeking is a 10-foot buffer. So what we ask for is certainly compatible with the area. It's recommended for approval by staff. There are two TEs. TE2 we agree with. TE1 we agree to in part. We would ask, though, that rather than the 15-foot landscape buffer, it'd be 10 feet. I believe that C3 is a 5-foot buffer, so even at the 10 feet that we propose, we're still double what the code would require. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and we would ask for your approval.
What's on the conceptual site plan? And I know I'm getting into the weeds on commenting on a conceptual site plan. What's with the big, almost like paved apron out here? Is that what I can call it? To the right of the building, it's the wedge-shaped portion.
This?
Yeah. What does that serve? Is it for trucks?
Only trucks.
Turning radius? Or
I believe so, yeah, for deliveries, and the dumpsters are back here.
Okay. Just seems like a
We can
big,
look.
weird no man's land.
Sure. I think that's just the amount that they need. I mean, they don't want to pave just for the sake of paving, but we can look at it. If we can reduce the paving, then so be it.
So what is the issue with the setback from the west?
It doesn't, the site won't work with that. I'm not sure why the original developer of 718 agreed to a 15-foot setback. Typical commercial is a 5-foot landscape buffer. What we're proposing is, again, 10, so double what commercial allows. Perhaps it was because it was going to be a gas station. I'm not sure.
I don't understand why it wouldn't work. It looks to me like there's plenty of room.
On the eastern side, you get into railroad right-of-way and other issues. So once we start sliding to the east, we lose the ability to have the necessary parking to serve the site.
I don't see that, but okay. I would not be in favor of reducing the setback.
Maybe you can see it now on the image that's on the screen. Again, we're not reducing the setback. We're actually expanding what a traditional commercial the landscape buffer is. The particular reasons why.
That the PUD it's under now requires a bigger setback.
Well, sure, but it also allows gas stations.
So you're reducing it if you're asking for less.
Well, it's a fair argument to say that that could have been specifically negotiated the last time the PUD came through.
It may have. I have no idea why. It wasn't involved.
But that's the chair's point.
The intent, when you read the staff report, was it was going to be a gas station. And so perhaps there was concern with the residents to the west, and as a gas station, they wanted slightly larger. As I'm aware of no protest, I'm not sure that concern exists. That's typically why you see increased landscaping buffers, is because of specific concerns with protesters.
I do actually have somebody signed up to speak. Well, I mean, I have some concern about those residential properties that back up to this. And while you indicate that it might be because it was a gas station, I think it might be because it was a commercial use right up against those residential uses. I mean, you're perfectly welcome to ask, but.
Why the elimination of uses? What is the thought
Just to be
process?
clear, this is what we're doing. I mean, what we're doing is Dollar General, and so we don't need gas stations. We don't need those other things. We're trying to be as concise as we can.
Help their argument.
Dollar General
They're not going to do
sells
those bad
beer,
things.
right? You don't want alcohol sales?
What's that?
No alcohol sales?
The alcohol sales here would be an independent liquor store. You could sell alcohol as an accessory
retail.
use. It's like a grocery store. A grocery store doesn't need the liquor sale use to be able to sell like beer and things.
So why are we eliminating the street trees? Do I understand that's part of the deal too?
I wasn't real clear what what was meant by street trees. I mean, we will meet and/or exceed the landscaping code.
I assume there was some requirement specified in the previous PUD.
But again, if you think about the previous PUD, it's because they were negotiating because of a specific use. And so when the use is different, I'm not sure that the same things that another developer, another property owner bargained for have any relevance to a current discussion.
You keep saying that there was a specific use, but there was a whole larger list of things it could be.
Well, fair enough, but when you look at the site plan and read the narratives, it was intended to be a gas station. And they put all the uses that they thought they needed for a gas station. It was actually called the Master Plan of On-Go Express.
Okay, I have a question for staff. I'm sorry I didn't ask you this earlier. What is a pylon sign?
The pole sign.
Same thing as a pole sign. Sign on the top of a pole.
We'd be happy to make it a monument sign.
Mine's super quick. I mean, it does say in here that you guys will meet the landscaping code, except street trees shall not be required. That's part of your language.
Right. But I mean, you want street trees are fine. We'll put street trees there.
Okay. Just check. Just wanted to follow up on that.
To take the discussion in a totally different direction, and I apologize, Commissioners, I have visited with Councilwoman Nice, and we have been discussing her concerns about the idea of there even being a Dollar General in this location in the first place. I recognize, as I have had a discussion with David, that this is already a permitted use for this property, so I recognize that. However, I think it's important for the Commission to keep in mind that we, in Northeast Oklahoma City and in Ward 7, and in particular this zip code, we have a food desert. We have a very serious problem of there not being any fresh access to fresh food, access to excellent fruits and vegetables. And I want you also to keep in mind that there is, as I did discuss with David, a grocery store on 23rd and Martin Luther King that is totally inadequate, to say the least. I think a couple of things. One, there's already a dollar store right down the street, less than a mile away, on 23rd Street, just a little bit further west. And the fact that we continue to build all of these dollar stores are what can take away from the already small margins that any major grocery store retailer may be able to get. I also want to call everyone's attention to this memo from the municipal councilor's office discussing this very issue of whether we would be able to have a continuance for our staff to do further research on what impact this may have on the ability of residents of Northeast Oklahoma City to have access to fresh food. I think that everyone knows that it's widely publicized the health issues and health disparities that are in Northeast Oklahoma City, and I think that by moving forward with this development would have a very bad effect of exacerbating that already existing problem. So for that reason, I will be asking for us to have a continuance for staff to look further into this issue and the potential impact, that negative impact that it could have on the residents of Northeast Oklahoma City.
So I'd like to respond, and I certainly respect Commissioner Pennington's thoughts on this, but what he's really talking about is a policy decision. Policy decisions are made by the City Council. The Planning Commission on zoning cases is a recommending body. In fact, Commissioner Power, I actually wrote down what you told the neighbors in the application before this, and what you said was the only question is whether, in that instance, the single family is appropriate, whether the use is appropriate. So here, the question, presumably, given that context, is whether or not the uses, and that being a Dollar General, and the regulations set forth in the Spud, are appropriate. What the municipal council's memo talks about time and time again is a food desert. So what I've handed you, and the food deserts are defined by the USDA. What I've handed you is a screenshot from the USDA taken today, moments before I walked over here, in which you can see that the site we're actually talking about is not located in a food desert. Across the street is a food desert, but the USDA doesn't recognize this piece of property as a food desert. So what's really being discussed is some sort of moratorium that the city council, through the police power, could perhaps do, assuming that they met the legal requirements for a plan and a specified period of time and all the other things that the law requires, but to try to impact an application that has been filed for quite some time when there is no moratorium in place, and considering the fact that the uses that we seek today are already allowed by right, seems a bit much. All we're asking for is a little bit more height on a building, a little less landscape buffer on the west side, but this is not a policy discussion about the presence or lack of presence of a food desert. We're simply not in a food desert pursuant to the USDA, but I don't think that's a discussion for Planning Commission anyways. That's a discussion at the policy level at City Council.
I get the argument. I do think, it's my understanding that as a commission, we are not just tasked with, the minutiae of rezoning, but in ensuring conformance with the comprehensive plan, right, on any of this, which has a wider scope. And so I would imagine that there probably is a tie-in when we start to consider the comp plan. I'm not going to make that connection here in any way because I don't know exactly what it might be, but
fair point.
I think there might be, I think there might be a good case to be made to hit pause and consider the issue.
Well, to your point, staff, when they make the recommendation, it is checked against the comprehensive plan, and staff recommends approval. There's no indication whatsoever that it is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan, or if it did, they'd either recommend denial or they'd recommend that we seek some other comp plan designation that perhaps would fit.
Well, I think staff, and they can speak for themselves, but I think they do tend in their staff reports to stick to the main points, the main codified points of both our zoning code and also the comp plan, like the things that are like, this is what we're doing, right? The portions that we could take today and directly translate into regulations if we wanted to. The bigger ideas that we're also allowed to consider, I don't think a lot of times staff jumps into that deeper water. That's my take on reviewing the staff reports and being here for a couple of years myself.
I guess my question for our municipal counselor would be that we are not here, we were not appointed to make policy decisions. And so by making a recommendation, or to deny or to approve, we're sending that recommendation to City Council for consideration under a broader purview. Is that fair context? And it would certainly be within any council person's right at that point to request for a continuance, so something like that could be adhered to. What I've always understood us being asked of us to recommend to City Council is whether or not a property from a use and density perspective is appropriate. In this instance, I don't know that you could even come up with an argument on those 2 points, and only those 2 points. I'm not saying anything else about food deserts or anything else, that this would not be perfectly appropriate. It's already zoned for it. we're making a 4-foot height change and a 5-foot landscaping change. How does that alter the use and density discussion for our recommendation? So the question of municipal council is that a correct statement in terms of what our role is in recommending approval or denial of the city council? It's their discretion to take that recommendation under a broader purview and make a decision like that on a policy basis, correct?
Before she answers that question, I would just have to say, I have to take exception to that characterization. The idea that we don't have any policy role is a little too much for me. I mean, if you look at the state statutes and the empowerment of the Planning Commission and its duties and its purview, I think it's pretty broad, and it does encompass health, safety, welfare of the citizenry, all those things. I mean, yes, the medium in which that we exercise that authority has to do with land use issues, but the comprehensive plan is our plan. It's not something that somebody else adopted and it's imposed on us, and it's our job just to connect the dots. That's not how that works.
Said nothing to that end. The staff report we were provided in consideration of the comprehensive plan makes a recommendation to approve. Therefore, I am to understand that staff believes that this property is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. If they had recommended denial on comprehensive plan grounds, then I would feel differently about our ability to review that purview under the policy of the comprehensive plan. That is not the policy with which we're being asked to consider a request for a continuance on something that is a complete application. So I'm making the point that that's a city council issue. It's not my job to say whether or not it's right or it's wrong. That's the appropriate forum for a decision like that to get made. That's my point. But just for the record, I would appreciate if we could get, is that a fair context?
Well, I think you're making a recommendation to the city council based upon all the factors that they would consider. So I think you are making a decision whether or not this is appropriate use for that particular area for reasons that have been stated.
And I guess to that point, we were handed these documents just as we sat down. I hadn't seen them before we got here today. I haven't had a chance to read them. This is advice from our municipal counselor that I have not had the opportunity to digest, and would want the opportunity to digest before we vote on this matter, frankly. If we're not going to continue the matter, then I think we ought to perhaps recess and give ourselves a chance to at least review the memos that we've been given.
I'm open to taking a recess if we deem that appropriate. But to the specific point about whether it is valid for us to grant a continuance on these grounds, the memo is very clear that we would be acting within our legal authority. Is that correct in my understanding of the memo?
That is correct. You have the authority under our bylaws to request a continuance for any valid reason, and it's up to the commission to determine whether or not that reason is valid. And we do have a municipal counselor's opinion who has looked at this issue and opines that that is a valid reason for them to have more time to determine whether or not this would be an appropriate use for this area.
Whether or not the use is appropriate for the area, the governing body 5 years ago, by ordinance, declared the use appropriate for the area. Not just the area, this specific site.
But you're trying to change that. So.
Not the use. We're not trying to change use whatsoever.
So we have two people who are signed up to speak on this matter. I guess the question is, are we going to continue this matter? Are we going to hear from the people who are here to speak? Are we going to take a recess? What is the commission's pleasure?
I think we should hear from the citizens first.
Is that okay with everybody else? Let's do it. Shirley Cooks. Here, please, if you would.
Good afternoon. My name is Shirley Cooks. I own a home less than a quarter of a mile, and there's many reasons why I protest that the neighborhood right where they're talking about, that little strip of land, it was a house there many years ago. I used to go there as a small child. that area, that business area, there is railroad tracks and apartments, and I feel that that small strip of land would affect the neighborhood with the noise and it changing the zoning for our neighborhood because it's a residential area, even though I don't live there in that house right now. But my plans are, within the next 2 years, is to begin to do repairs on my home in order to move back to that area because I see that part of my area of my history is being diminished before my eyes. I was raised up, I was born before my parents bought that home. I was born off of 2nd and South. I work in the downtown Oklahoma City area, and my grandmother lived there, my aunt and uncles, and everything is gone. There's no affordable housing for anybody to be there. But once I see that strip of land is gone, even though it's going to be a business, but also I seen where Dollar General has built a Dollar General store. It was fairly new in Arion Moore where the tornado hit, but then that strip of land, brand new stores, was just torn down that other developers could come in there and put other things in there. And I'm just afraid that that would be one of the plans also for that small strip of area. But even that corner they speak of, that is a bus stop. Right now there is a problem, people getting bus service in and out of the area, even though I know that they extended the time. But then there's co-workers that I work with, the bus service doesn't run early enough, and I know that's another. It's not part of this here, but I'm just expressing my opinion that I don't agree with that because it's going to be a retail area. I don't know for how long, but I just feel that it's a plan for something even bigger that would even force the people out of that neighborhood because that small tract does run up into other people's backyard that lives off of Miramar. That small tract of land, it is someone else's backyard, and that's why I disagree.
Thank you. Thank you for coming down. Reverend Paulette, is it Legg? Lee, it's Lee, here in the middle, please.
My name is Paulette Legg. I am in the vocation of a cleric, so I'm Reverend Paulette Legg, and I thank you for allowing me to have this space to speak on this item. It is not why I'm here today, but I just heard so many comments about the possibility of this Dollar General, and I wish I could read maps better, and I must admit to you that much of what's been said here I've not understood or heard. The microphones are muzzled and the voices are not coming across clearly enough or loudly enough that I've been able to keep up with the presentation nor the dialogue and exchange. But I stood just to simply say, with respect to northeast quadrant of this great city, Oklahoma City, stimulation of growth and development, commerce, and we pray that it's all for the good of the people in that area, should not be muzzled. Dollar General is a good store. They do good work in their communities. I just don't know how to place that understanding and appreciation for that business and what they do for their neighborhoods that I know that they're in with what's before me on this map. 55 years in this state, however, 32 in the city of Plano and Frisco, Texas last. What brought me back here in May of 2017, you'll hear later in my presentation that I'm going to make on the item that I am here for, since May of 2017. But wherever this is, with that Oklahoma school bus depot there, I think I have it in mind that you're right upon the approach of that big circular on 23rd Street where we got that I-35 divide. I don't know where he's proposing to put this Dollar General. However, space is an item, sister, over there. And everything seems to back up to those residential areas. My first and foremost concern, the people, which is why you're in the position you're in, why I do what I do for the people. So I would say if you're leaning toward tabling this, I certainly would want some more intelligence about exactly what they plan to do to safeguard those people who have been in that community for years. Traffic, debris, filth, noise, all those concerns that deteriorate our northeast quadrant of Oklahoma City. Thank you for this space.
Thank you. So I think what I'm inclined to do is take a motion on the continuance, see how that goes. If we're going to continue it, then we'll have plenty of time to read our memos. And if not, then we can take a recess and do it then.
If we're inclined to continue it, we'd ask for 2 weeks. A 7-week continuance is really a 13-week continuance, because 7 weeks till Planning Commission means another 6 weeks to City Council. What you're really doing is deferring this 3.5 months. I don't think that's a reasonable request.
I'm sorry, did you request that it be continued for 13 weeks?
No, I haven't even stated how much time.
The memo says 7 weeks.
Well, I haven't read the memo, so I don't know that.
So I mean, if you're going to do it, we'd at least ask for 2 weeks.
I'll leave that to whoever makes the motion.
One of my questions on this is, and this probably doesn't have anything to do with us as planning commissioners, but this moratorium, where does it begin and end? I mean, Ward 7's giant. Are we going to put a moratorium over all of Ward 7 from 44th Street out to Choctaw? And then my second comment isn't very pleasant, but over the last couple of years, with the last Ward 7 city councilman, we had a Save-A-Lot grocery store built at 36th and Kelly, and it went away because it wasn't supported. So this food desert notion is you can build it, but you can't make them come to it. And so I don't know where the people that live there shop, but apparently they're not interested in a full-service grocery store, at least at 36th and Kelly.
And I think you're bringing up two very good points. The first one, let's talk about the moratorium. I'm not addressing the moratorium on dollar stores at all.
Okay.
What I'm saying is I think that we need more time to determine what impact, if any, it will have on building this Dollar General will have on Northeast Oklahoma City and their access to healthy, fresh food, what impact that will have on the ability to even open a full-service grocery store that is successful. To your second point, I think that part of the reason why, one of the contributing factors to the Save-A-Lot not being successful is stores like this. It's that if you don't have to, if you have a place across the street where you can get half the items you need, you're not going to a Save-A-Lot to get all of the items that you need. And so that's part of the issue. But more importantly, we could study that and find that out. And if we gave staff enough time, maybe we can determine that that's not what I've stated is not actually true. But I think it's worth studying when you consider the potential negative impact that it has on the residents of Northeast Oklahoma City that already, and it's well documented, have a serious health disparity than the rest of Oklahoma City.
So, I mean, if I may, part of the, when you're asking for studies like this happen in the confines of a moratorium. And so, although you're not using the word moratorium, you're really talking about a moratorium. Because you're asking for nothing to happen until a study can happen. And so I guess my question would be, then, is every application in Ward 7 that contains these two use units going to be off the table? I mean, is that, and again, to your point, or perhaps your point, is that Planning Commission's role? I don't think it is. Especially considering this application, those two use units are already there and were approved by the City Council 5 years ago.
I think that the only thing I can do as a member of this commission is vote on the things that are before me And so I can't speak to what is going to happen with anybody else that has an application similar to this one, but I can deal with the issue that's right in front of us. And I know that I feel that it's our duty to make sure that we're protecting the health and safety of the people that we represent here. As far as the legal question of whether we are allowed to take this into consideration when we're voting on whether to issue this continuance, we have it right here in the memo that we're legally allowed to consider that. So I think it's valid for us to go ahead and, we have the legal clearance here to say that we can take this into consideration. So I think the question before us is whether we want to do that or not.
Is that a motion?
It will be a motion, assuming that all of our commissioners have had a chance to ask their questions.
And I would just like to say that the Planning Commission is not the one doing the moratorium. It would be the council, and that would be, there actually will be an item set for the May 7th council meeting for that to be considered. So what you are doing is just making a continuance so that in order that the issue can be studied further. Mr. Box can order the council meeting.
If we continue the item 2 weeks, we'll know the outcome of that discussion at council on the 7th.
So I move that we continue the item till the next meeting.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue item number 5 until the May 9th meeting. Would you cast your votes, please? It's continued until May the 9th.
Item 6 on the agenda is SPUD 1118 to rezone 1216 Blackwelder Avenue from R2 residential to SPUD 1118.
We are going really slow today.
We are. My name is Jeff Struble, 1916 Northwest 18th Street. This is 3 lots off of 12th and Blackwelder that's zoned R2. Right now there's an existing fourplex that we're wanting to remodel, so we need to up the zoning. So we're looking at doing some live work and doing some new construction too. So we're just trying to do a little density and have a parking lot in the back so it's, up on the street. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Was this building, did it originally have commercial on the ground floor?
It originally looked like it was like a grocery store or something with 8 units upstairs, but when I picked it up, there was 4 garages basically downstairs and 4 units upstairs. So we're trying to we're working with some artists, and we're trying to have some art, kind of make this little art block where we have artists that can, we've kind of been pushed out of the Plaza District, have a place where they can live a little more affordably and work and be able to, live work spaces there.
I walk by this thing quite a bit. My girlfriend lives in the area, and we like to walk around the neighborhood. And I can't be more excited that the garages will be going away on that side. I think it's going to transform the way that intersection feels in the local property. So I think it's a big win, and I'm glad that that's a major part of this proposal.
And what we're all looking to do is putting kind of glass garage doors, but won't be able to be used. We'll have sidewalks and then trees in front of the, so we will be adding trees to the street there to help shade that east-facing building. So I think it'll be a good addition for the neighborhood.
I also am really kind of excited about this. They did the upgrade of the apartments on the east side, on Caddy Corners southeast, and this is. That, in conjunction with something like this, can really be a kickstart for an area. There are a lot of really funky, kind of cute little houses and apartments and that thing that looks like a tourist court kind of east on 12th Street, I guess, or west on 12th Street there, a little complex. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential there, and it needs something to kind of kick it in gear, I think. So.
Well, that's what we're hoping to do with this project.
The one question I had, there's a comment made, and there's a conceptual drawing about a staggered, it says undulating, but I think of that as kind of more curvy, but frontage on the fourplex. Is that actually a commitment that you're making to the design?
Well, we were trying to kind of because the building on the corner that's there is on the property line, so we were wanting to kind of have, more up on the property line at, closer to Blackwelder, and then kind of stagger it back a little bit to kind of move back to the setbacks a little bit that's on the houses farther along the street. But then, and then this street dead ends into McKinley Park, which is a great community space just right down the street.
I would like to see that staggered front on it, because the scale of it could be kind of overwhelming to those rather small homes. And also, you're varying the setback off of 12th from the residences to the east. So if you're going to do that, I think it would be an adequate or an appropriate, I'll say, trade-off there to have it, not straight across the 12th Street frontage.
I agree.
So, JJ, will you make sure that language gets added? Thank you. So, anybody else? Do you have anybody here who wants to be heard on this item today? These benches are
And we
getting
did meet
really
with the
hard.
neighborhood association and talked with them, and everybody was in favor of this also, the last meeting ago.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion. I do want to say beforehand, I want to full disclosure, I'm going to run into this in the future. Jeff is a past client. I have no project with him currently, and I am comfortable making a motion on this item. If anybody else is not comfortable, please feel free to speak up.
Second.
So I got a second. I'm going to make a motion. My motion is to recommend approval on the item to City Council.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 6. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
Thank you.
Item 7 is case SPUD 1119 to rezone 716 Northwest 68th Street from R1 Single Family and PUD 716 to SPUD 1119.
And on this one, I will be recusing myself.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll let him vacate the premises. All right, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. The applicant, Mr. Clay Farha, who is here with me today. This is an SPUD that is identical to several other zoning cases you've seen in this area over the last probably year or so, in terms of PUD 1653 and a couple other SPUDs that aren't seen on the screen. So we've matched the uses, we've matched the development regulations. We'd be happy to answer any questions. There are no TEs, and staff does recommend approval.
So, because of the way the streets don't go through in the wooded area and all of that, couldn't really get all the way back there, but there is a significant drop in grade from the edge of this property to the tracks. Is there not?
Yeah, I believe so. And if you think about what this particular piece is likely to be, it's going to be part of an overall larger development. So it's kind of unclear as to what the actual development on this site ends up being. But what we do know is that it is going to be compatible in terms of use, density, other regulations that have been approved in the other PUDs and SPUDs that surround the site.
Yeah, I think it's fairly clear that this piece of property is not really even developable by itself. So.
Sure.
Okay. So is there anybody else here who wanted to be heard on this item? No? I'll take a motion.
I'll move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 7. Would you cast your votes, please? It's approved.
Thank you.
But you might make a note that Commissioner Highsmith is actually not voting, even though his light's on.
Good call. Are you ready for item 8? Item number 8, SP 525. It's for a special permit to construct a cell tower in the C3 district at 401 Southeast 44th Street.
Again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Do we want to let Commissioner Highsmith know that he can
He'll be back.
participate?
I know,
again?
he's, you know.
There he is. All right. I don't want him to miss out on the fun. So again, David Box, if you recall, this was an item that was continued from 2 weeks ago. At the time of the hearing last 2 weeks, there was a claim made that there was a specific provision in the federal law that allowed for municipalities to deny cell tower applications if there was perhaps a pacemaker of a certain vintage involved. The chair and various other members of the commission wanted that to be researched. So both your city attorney's office and as well as myself went and researched the issue. And what I have found that I believe is confirmed by your city attorney is that there is not a specific caveat. Congress has preempted municipalities from considering health effects and RF frequency effects from your consideration in these types of applications. What is required is that the cell phone companies must meet the FCC regulation. The FCC is the organization that controls those types of things. The thought being they are in a better position, perhaps, than local governmental entities to consider what the scientific data really is for these types of things. So your municipal councilor did provide a memo before the hearing in which her answer was no, the Planning Commission City Council cannot consider the environmental effects of RF emissions when deciding whether to approve or deny a telecommunications tower. That is also supported by a mountain of federal case law. So we'd be happy to answer any questions. You heard testimony last time. I've got all of the handouts if you want to see them again. Please tell me, and we're happy to go through that, or, again, answer any questions you might have.
Commissioners, are there any questions of our applicant or our municipal counselor? I don't have anyone. Oh, I do. I do have someone signed up to speak on this matter. Nancy Howard. Ms. Howard, you were with us last time, were you not? Did you have? I remember. Did you have something else you wanted to tell us about that?
Well, I wanted to say that what he just said, it says in the, both in the FCC and the FDA have a statement that they list on pacemakers and the electromagnetic fields. And it says that a patient, even in home care and in home, has to be given preference. So I want to see, because I read all of the 47 that he has to be under regulations with, and if he has to be under regulations, then I'm going to have to call the FCC myself, because they said that they will come out and monitor him.
So,
because my pacemaker is 26 years old, and it was donated to me by the pacemaker company at the time, so it's probably older. It's not, the Guinness Book of World Records pacemaker's 36 years old. I'm 26. They didn't have all this safeguards that they do. He said last time a baby monitor can affect me if I put it up close to my pacemaker. You're putting a radio frequency magnetic field over my whole house. I cannot move away from it. Read all the doctor's issues. Read on the FDA website, on the FCC website. They tell you that they affect pacemakers, and they tell you right there, older pacemakers.
So
now, what am I supposed to do?
I'm not sure. Do you have some specific response to her concerns with respect to our purview and our ability to take that in consideration as part of our decision making?
As far as the city goes, we are preempted from federal law from considering those type of effects.
It says in the quote of federal law, though. In that deal, it says to take the patient and devices, medical devices, into consideration.
I do not find that in federal law. Now, what they have to comply with is the emissions that are set by the FCC. And so that may be what they're speaking about. As far as whether or not they actually meet that, they may come out and monitor to make sure that that is being met. But I found nothing in my research that exempted anything or that allowed municipalities to consider any health risks.
Did you look under the medical devices for pacemakers and defibrillators under the FCC and the FDA? It lists the radio frequency, the magnetic field. It is a pulsed wavelength. I don't know if he is a receiver and transmitter. If that's the tower's going to be both, then that's double that is going to happen. And when the waves, when everyone calls into that cell tower, one wave, they pulse. And I could be walking in my yard and I'll be fine today. And tomorrow the wave hits me just right and I either drop dead or I'm in the emergency room. I've had to deal with this all my life since I've been 28 years old. I'm 54 now. And I've had to deal. In my home, I have not had no trouble in my house because I keep stuff away from me. My husband has a cell phone, but I do not use it. Because there's certain things that this older pacemaker is not filtered. And when I go out in regular town, I have to always move away. The stores that has where you walk through to check out they're theft protectors, I can't stop and stand in that. Because if I stop and stand in that, it's going to start triggering my pacemaker. And it even tells you that in the I'm sorry, I can't talk.
Ms. Howard.
The FCC and the FDA rules. It even says about those in there. Welders, chainsaws. There is a whole load of things. A blow dryer can affect me. A magnet in a big speaker magnet if I get too close to it.
Ms. Howard, I'm not doubting any of that, and I think that probably more of the commissioners than just me are very sympathetic to your situation.
Oh, I know.
If I thought I had even this much authority to require them to put this thing someplace else based on how it was going to affect you, I would do it. But our municipal counselor...
Can I go on by what he said that was untrue?
But
he sat there and stated that there wasn't no residence close to it. In the building next door to it is 4 apartment complex building. That's apartments. They live in that building. Okay? The next thing, radio frequency and TV frequency. Okay? I've been told that that's going to mess up all of our televisions and all the elderly people's TVs.
we don't have any control over that either, though.
Well, in the rules under the 47, it says list interference with television and reception.
Is that a valid basis for us to deny this?
No. The FCC is very clear, and as far as the Act, as well as all the case law, there's a specific limitation upon what municipalities can consider when determining whether or not to deny a cell tower, and it specifically says, no state or local government or instrumentality thereof may regulate the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities on the basis of the environmental effects of radio frequency emissions to the extent that such facilities comply with the Commission's regulations concerning such emissions.
Right, and that's for the cancer that everybody's yelling.
I don't think it's specific to cancer.
Read
the case law talks about the case law talks about other health risks also, so it's not just specifically to dealing with cancer.
Okay. Well, the next thing then I'll have to say then is T-Mobile is where I found out who this is, and their excellent service in our area by their maps. They have 3 towers, a tower here, a tower here, and a tower here. And he's putting the tower over here. Now, directly in the center of those 3 towers is a poor reception area. But where he's putting it at is excellent reception. Why is he not putting it in the poor reception area? I would like that to be answered. Thank you all.
Thank you for coming. I'm sure this must be incredibly frustrating for you. Is there anybody else here today who wishes to be heard on this item? Commissioners?
I'd like to echo the chairwoman's earlier statement that, seriously, highly sympathetic. I mean, if we could do something, you'd have to know that we would, but this is not, we're legally We have no legal grounds here. This has been made clear to us many times. If we tried to do something, the city would be sued, and we'd be in court and we'd lose. So it's a fight that needs to be above us. And I'm sympathetic. I hope you find a way to continue the fight.
Ma'am, if you have something to say, you're going to need to come forward.
FCC to directly contact y'all, where they can show you where I'm talking about. I've read it all. It specifically says
if the FCC
pacemakers and defibrillators, medical devices. We are affected by it. Doctors have, there is loads and loads of research to show that proof.
It's not a question of whether or not there is that effect. It's a question of whether or not we have the authority to base our decision on that effect.
That law that y'all are all quoting, it says it plain under the medical pacemakers, under the FCC, they have a joint statement.
Our attorney has told us that.
Okay, so if I can get them to show you that?
If they noted it as an exception to what we were talking about today, there's no doubt that she would.
It is an exception. Even you says the word exception.
Let us know.
Exception to patients.
Sure. Then, yes, I would say you do
That's
that.
right, she does. You have time between now and the time this matter is heard by City Council to do whatever it is that you think you can do with respect to getting contact from the FCC and making that information known to the municipal councilor.
And I would recommend you do that. And I would recommend that you absolutely do that.
Thank you very much.
I'll make sure she has your contact information.
Y'all won't run into this too often because ain't many of us got this owed. We get them changed at 5 and 10 years. Mine's just lasted.
Well, we hope you set the record.
And finally, unfortunately, today, based on the information that we know, unless there's more to be discussed, I'm ready to make a motion.
Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on this item today? If not, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to recommend approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 8. Would you cast your votes, please? Commissioner Coffey, there you go. That's all of us. It is approved.
And I do have one question on these, generically these types of items in the future. Is there even a point for us to see these? Like, what are we getting out of having these here currently? Are we making?
We're doing our job.
Are there points of negotiation still on these? Can we even talk about?
Yeah, I think you can make the determination whether or not they've met their burden of proof that there's that this is necessary and that there's a gap in service and that there's and the other requirements that they need to prove.
I do appreciate the memo as it relates to this specific issue. I think, as I discussed last time, it would be extraordinarily helpful, as Commissioner Highsmith has requested, that we get something that's a bit more general so we know what we can and cannot consider here beyond the scope of health effects. Are there things that we can consider that municipal council agrees with? I've read the brief on this 8 times. I don't need to read it another time, but I'm curious to the accuracy of that brief as it relates to the municipal councilor's opinion there. If there are things for us to consider, it would be really helpful to know that information.
Okay, I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to as far as you were referring to our other briefs, previous ones in the past, or this particular one?
The only one I've ever been presented with in our packet is a brief that Mr. Box's office prepared up until today, which we now have an answer as it relates specifically to the consideration of health effects. So,
okay, and that today's memo references 2 other legal opinions that have been given by this office, and I can get you copies of those if you did not receive them prior. They were in 2012 and another one in 2015 maybe. So,
not going to speak for anybody else. I'd love to have one.
Okay.
I think we should all have them. I definitely do. So.
Item 9, SP 527, application by American Multi Cinema to operate a movie theater with mixed beverages at 1901 Northwest Expressway. It's Penn Square Mall.
Could you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Randy Malone, 209 Southwest 89th, Suite F. Excuse me. This is the AMC Theater in Penn Square Mall. They're applying to serve mixed beverages.
And just to be really clear about this, it's a situation where, what, you're going to come up to maybe there'll be a separate concession, you're going to be ID'd, you're going to be able to take that drink with you anywhere in the theater?
The answer to that question is yes. You can only go inside the theater if you have, with the drink, if you have a wristband or a hand stamp. That's required by state law. As far as where they're going to serve from, they're building a separate bar area, and only persons over 21 or over can go to that area.
I see, okay.
And also, I should say this. I looked at their prices, a drink venue prices in a movie theater. I think a margarita is $14. It's not, it's intended for one drink while you're watching.
Okay. So I guess the question that I would pose, and at the risk of causing a mutiny at 3:07 on a policy question, the question that I guess I would pose for the commission at large here is whether there is any political will is not the right way to, policy will, I guess, to limit service of alcohol in some other way in these theaters, whether to a defined area or, in some other way. And my children are past this stage, but I just know that it would have been very difficult for me when they were quite small to think about taking them to a theater where people were drinking. There's going to be a new Avengers movie out this weekend, and that's going to be kind of the classic, the 6-year-olds will be there, the 26-year-olds will be there. It's nice to know that they're going to be paying $14 a drink for their beverages. That should eliminate a few. This may just be one of those things that the time for it has come and gone. If we're going to be drinking in dress shops and nail salons, maybe we're going to be drinking everywhere we go. But the question that I have for the commission is whether we have any desire to limit a service area in a situation like this. I think that's within our purview. We could do it if we so desired. And my question is, do we so desire?
You're asking, and I do want to be on the record as being opposed to $14 margaritas. But do we have the authority to just say, okay, you can only serve it in certain theaters and just limit it that way? Is that what you're saying? Or certain movie theaters within the, is that, only alcohol can be served in theater 1 and 2?
I'm not sure about that.
And do we even have the legal authority to say that?
I think we do have the authority to limit it to certain areas. How we would define those areas, I guess, is an open question. So, it's a special permit. I think we have that authority. But how we would define it is a whole other thing.
Not up to us to dictate morality. I mean,
so that's a no.
If parents are aware that there's going to be alcohol served in the theater and choose to take their kids, then it's the same thing as taking them to Top Golf or
Thunder Game.
Thunder Game, exactly. I mean, the suites of the Thunder Game. So,
I'd be more concerned with my 6-year-old going to Avengers and seeing me drink a beer.
Valid point. So, no, is what I'm hearing.
I don't drink, actually, so I just don't care. I don't have kids. None of this matters.
Yeah, this really.
So I'm going to leave it up to you guys.
Commissioner Cravens, did you have anything you wanted to contribute? No. Is there anybody else here who wishes to be heard on this item today? Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
I'll move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and second to approve item number 9. Would you cast your votes, please? It's approved.
Thank you. I'll stick around. The next one is...
Item 10 is SB 528, application again by American Multi-Cinema to operate a movie theater with mixed beverages at 2501 West Memorial Road. That's at Quail Springs Mall.
Give us your name and address for the record.
209 Southwest 89th, Suite F.
Do we have any questions of our applicant about this particular application? That would be different from our last one. And is there anybody else here who wishes to be heard on this item? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion, second, to approve item number 10. Would you cast your votes, please? It's approved.
Item 11 is SB 529, application by Shane Lebeth for a special permit for above-ground flammable liquid storage at Wiley Post Airport, 7220 Northwest 63rd Street.
Would you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Stephen Chesser, Cornerstone Architecture, 2800 Southwest 89th Street.
For the benefit of the commissioners, I will let you know that because everything that has to do with the airports is, especially of concern, I contacted Mark Cranenberg and asked if he had anything he wanted to tell us about this application. He indicated that airports are well aware and in favor, and so he didn't have any concerns about it at all. Did you want to tell us something about what it is we're looking at?
Well, we're requesting 12,000 gallon tanks in lieu of 10,000, which isn't unusual out there. And she's correct. We've been to the airport authority, met with them multiple times. I have a letter that they had to sign for us to be able to come for this special permit.
So, just a little point of confusion. These things are not indoors, are they?
No, they're above
So
ground.
there's something about a hangar for an airplane hangar lease, and so.
There should be a site plan that shows they're in the lower right-hand portion.
Okay.
Portion of the
we
parking
don't.
lot. Yeah, they're above ground. They'll
Okay.
have
Okay.
spill tanks and all that.
Okay. Commissioners?
Do we have these somewhere else also? I'm just curious. I was just really curious. Do we have?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is it in the same area or?
Yeah, there's one down one drive and over at Love's. Their hangar has the same type of with the 12,000 gallon tanks. Because the trucks bring 9,000 gallons, so if you're not, you're running it pretty close if you've only got 10,000 gallon tank. So.
Is there anybody else here today who wishes to be heard on this item? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 11. Would you cast your votes, please? It's approved.
Thank you for your time.
Item 12 is PUD 1717, application by the City of Oklahoma City to rezone 4001 Northeast Grand Boulevard. That's Lincoln Golf Course.
Hello, Jeff Mosier with the City of Oklahoma City Parks and Recreation Department. I appreciate you taking the time to hear our application. I have 5 applications, one for each of our golf courses, and with all 5 of these, we're requesting that we're allowed to sell mixed beverages and also be allowed to erect digital signs at the courses. With the liquor laws, they changed this past fall, and I think there's an unintended consequence of that. So as the law is right now, like at Lincoln, for example, we have a banquet space that we rent out. If we have a special event for that banquet space and they're serving liquor, then we have to shut down the entire golf course. And so we got that interpretation from the Able Commission last week. And so our solution to this is for us to pursue a mixed beverage license And so that way, when we have someone in the banquet space, we can serve them the liquor and then also serve our guests and keep the golf course open. And then also, we are requesting to be able to erect digital signs at the golf courses as well.
So let's talk about the signs.
Sure.
I think that a 20-foot high, 200-square-foot sign is way too big. It's way more than we would allow any private operator. And I'm not crazy about the EMD2, frankly. EMD2 is the 8-second change. It's not the full-blown video thing, but I don't see the need for that. I know that when the city initially adopted its EMD ordinance, it was a source of some consternation amongst the council that they had already put up one of these things at the state fairgrounds because of the message that it sent, that this was just fine, you could put one anywhere. And I think putting them in these areas around the golf courses is just a really bad message to send. Certainly one that's 20 feet tall and has a 200-square-foot sign. With respect specifically to the one at Lincoln, however, it's a non-accessory sign, and that's a big problem for me. We don't have the ability to control content. I know it says here it'll only be advertising things that are happening in the adventure district. But we don't have any control over that, and we can't enforce it. So that's problematic. Fine, one other point. There's some language, this kind of squishy language with respect to the uses that says that the uses, these are the only uses that will be permitted. All the uses will be further limited to those necessary for the operation and maintenance of a golf course or recreation use. It doesn't say accessory to, and that's the language that we're used to. Is that problematic for you?
No, not at all.
Okay, so
Change
let's
that.
do that. So let's talk about signs.
I just thinking about Lincoln and where I guess the sign would be on 36th Street, right?
Well, we're requesting to be able to have one on 36th and one on 50th. The Golf Commission hasn't made a decision as to necessarily wanting to, but we would just like the option of having two. If we were to have one on 50th, we were thinking about incorporating something that would have the Adventure District on it, since that's where the zoo and all those other, and Remington and everything is. However, if you just want us to have one sign, then we would rather have it on 36th where our main entrance is.
I think in just this particular application for Lincoln, I think the sign is appropriate on 36th Street. I'm a little more hesitant with the 50th, but I know we're not talking about this yet, but as I look at the other applications that are a lot closer to residential areas, that's when I would be worried about the EMD signs. But 36th Street in this context is, I don't think it's problematic at all.
And I mean, at 50th Street, you're just shining it across at the Softball Hall of Fame, right? I mean, there's nothing residential anywhere close on 50th Street. I mean, Remington Park, the zoo.
Yeah, the application indicates that it also would be on Grand Boulevard, so that is really
36th
it's
Street.
off of MLK, it's off of I-35. It's really, it's shining it on Remington Park, I guess. So.
I know in some sign code, you're only allowed 50% of your sign to be of a digital nature. So at 200 square feet, you'd have 100 square feet to have your message and then your 100 square feet. But I have to agree with Janice on that the Adventure District houses a McDonald's and a Subway and a Family Dollar and a movie theater, and so are all of those businesses that are in the Adventure District going to have the opportunity to buy advertising on your sign?
That wouldn't be the plan. It was just a thought we had that it might promote the area with all we have out there, but if there's not a benefit from it, or if you don't recommend it, then
I agree that
certainly
that's
take that off the
an awful large sign for that spot. I don't disagree with the digital notion. I just don't know that 200 square feet is real. I mean, that's giant.
We're certainly willing to negotiate that and lessen the size and the height if you deem that appropriate.
I would like to see it reduced, but I take your point. Probably the digital part of it is, as you were saying, less of an issue here, where you're so well buffered, if that's the right word, from residential. But 20 feet high and 200 square feet is just too much, and it needs to be an accessory sign. I don't think we have the ability to limit the content, so.
Sure.
If we could limit the content, just limit it to attractions in the Adventure District as opposed to any other retail that would happen to be there. I mean, because I could see where you would partner up with Remington Park or the Firefighters Museum or, you know, something, and you could do something, a co-join kind of deal where you have a golf tournament or you're pushing your space, your new space for parties, or, I mean, all that makes all kinds of sense.
Yeah. We also have a new Girl Scout camp that's being built up there, zoo, quite a bit.
Okay, so we don't have a sense that we can control the content, period.
Right.
It's either an accessory sign, advertises the golf course and what's going on there, or not. I mean, one or the other.
Okay.
We also had talked about the possibility of doing a specific plan for the signage once you know what it's going to look like, and perhaps we can defer the determination of the size until then, so that we know sort of what we're getting.
Certainly. Yeah, and also this is, you know, we submitted this application with the intent of getting the mixed beverage license. We just thought we'd go ahead and have the option of having the signs as well while we're doing this. We don't have the funding for the signs at all the courses at this time. We do have, we're going to be building a new clubhouse at Early Wine, Jimmy Stewart, and Hefner in future years, and so we'll be able to use some bond money for those signs. So we think that the funding will be there for that, but as for the other courses, this will be an issue of funding for the Golf Commission to decide as well. And so...
Well, so shall we defer all of it, the size, shape, design, all of it, until specific plan stage? Do the approval, but leave that open?
On the design?
Are we in agreement to that?
I'm in agreement with that.
Does that sound good? Okay, well then I'll take a motion.
I move approval of item 12 with, okay, wait, I'm going to need to go ahead and rehear the other change that you made earlier.
So limiting the uses to those accessory to the operation of the golf course or recreation use. So rather than the language it has, we're going to say that they're limited to accessory to the golf course or recreational use.
Accessory to the golf course.
Right. And we're going to do a specific plan on the signage, size, shape, design, but it's going to be limited to an accessory sign. Oh, I'm sorry, we do have someone signed up to speak. Oh, no, this is number 5. Here, there it is. I'm sorry, we do have someone signed up to speak. Cool. Yes, 2. Give me a minute. Sorry. Jeff Haley, having listened to all that, did you have something you wanted to add?
No. What?
Give us your name and address for the record.
Jeff Haley, 4708 Rose Rock Drive.
Thank you.
No. I was just wanting clarification on the zoning. When it said single family, I wasn't sure what that meant. And I understand it now, I guess. So my question's been answered.
Okay,
Just
good.
setting in to listen. Thank you.
Good. You had to sit still on those really hard benches for a long time to get that question answered. Reverend Paulette Legg, this is the item you wanted to speak to us about. Here's your name and address for the record again,
Opportunity to
please.
speak to you. Thank you very much. This is the item that brought me down here to discuss and talk to you, august members of our council. And if I were to put everything
Give
I'm
us
about
your name and address for the record,
Oh,
please.
Paulette Legg. Physical address, 1918 Northeast 44th Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73111. For the past 55 years, my parents have lived there and raised me there in that house.
Thank you.
I'm happy to talk to you all about this item. And if I were to put what I'm about to say under a banner, that banner would read, "Halt with the fleecing of Northeast Quadrant, Oklahoma City." We are inundated with entertainment, happy time things, and all those casinos and the zoo amphitheater that I'm fighting presently. In that northeast area, across the street, particularly from my home of my rearing. I'm all for progression. I'm all for a city realizing the benefits of their space and utilizing it to their good. I'm completely opposed to doing that at the expense of the people. And I believe that what Lincoln Park Zoo is asking you to do in establishing and approving this broad sweeping item of permissivity for them is a detriment to me and my neighbors. The first thing that got my attention was the alcohol. They already sell alcohol at the golf course. Now they want you to approve them bringing it onto the golf course to drink while they're playing golf. But I ask you to consider, to what detriment? Not the obvious that someone could possibly get inebriated and leave that golf course and drive along my streets and peradventure have an accident and kill one of my neighbors. Broad sweeping request before you, Council. I'm opposed to that first and foremost on that level. I also oppose the idea that you want this language, the ability to use the language that's soft enough, Community Resource General, Administrative and Professional Office, in your uses of this zoning revisement, if you will. Eating establishment, you already have all that. So I just have this looming question, what is really what you want? That I can see at this juncture. Is this another Oklahoma Zoo amphitheater monster coming into my neighborhood? That's a detriment to force that's far sweeping, and we're doing some investigating now to find out where did that item come from, and they're having to research, the city's having to research the archives to see just exactly what was the language and the intent of an amphitheater 80 feet away from a neighborhood where the people are aging and their children are playing in the streets, and it's no neighborhood any longer.
You know, we're not here to talk about the amphitheater.
No, I'm done with that.
That's not part of this application at all.
But I said that only to say, in similarity, your golf course has been there as long as we've been here, it seems like to me, for over 45 years. I see no need for rezoning that you can broadly sweep now your alcohol license. And the signs, to bring more revenue. I imagine we want to advertise to bring more revenue.
We're not going to do that, though.
Yeah.
It's not going to be it's not going to be a non-accessory
The signs are
sign.
distraction. They're also, there's distraction, and they are a public nuisance in that they further deteriorate the value of our homes in that area. And what revenue comes back to the people who live with the broken streets, the potholes, the traffic, the noise, the stench of liquor after a good weekend, the residents? I oppose this on every level. I ask you to consider the fact that there are people that are significant to this city living in those areas, and stop the fleecing of Northeast Quadrant. I need more information on exactly what that broad sweeping language intends to entail. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to talk to us.
I can say that the uses that are in the PUD were put there because they're uses that are at the golf course now, and we're just covering everything that's currently at the golf course so it can stay and be maintained as a municipal golf course. Right now, it's zoned R1. Every time they come in for, if they come in for a permit, there's issues. They've had issues over the years. All the golf courses have. This puts them in conforming zoning so they can continue to operate as a municipal golf course and add the signs and the alcohol sales.
And that is one of the reasons why we're adjusting the language to indicate that these uses will all be limited to those that are accessory to the golf course and recreation use. So I understand your concern about it. It looks like a long list of things. I agree.
The alcohol wording is a byproduct of the law change from 6, 8, 10 months, whenever the law changed. Were they able to do all of this stuff before the law change, and now they can't because they
recently amended that?
No, the impetus of the PUD is for the alcohol. But
so prior to, if this is approved, they weren't allowed to serve anything stronger than beer?
They were limited to beer, all the golf courses.
Unless they had a license, liquor license, which most private courses.
Okay. That's all I have signed up. Is there anybody else who wanted to be heard on this item today? No golfers in the audience? Commissioners? No.
I just want to say with respect to the comments that were made, I hope that, one, I used to live in the neighborhood on Myers Place, so I've been there, lived there, understand that. Definitely understand the noise from the amphitheater, so I empathize. Secondly, we just plan on operating a golf course just like they already are, so I definitely understand wanting to be cautious about change coming to Northeast Oklahoma City, but keep in mind, again, it's just about making sure that all of the uses that are going on at the golf course can continue and that the zoning is correct. So, that being said, I'm going to do my best on a motion to approve item 12 and with the following changes. That the signage be accessory signs only, and that we will require a specific plan as to the size, shape, and design of the signage, and that we will limit the uses, the allowable uses to those accessory to the golf course. Is that both?
That's it.
Okay. Thanks.
Got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second to approve item number 12 as modified. Would you cast your votes, please? It's approved. So we have, what, 4 more of these? There are 5 total?
5 total.
They're all fairly straightforward. The sign at Lincoln was the only one that was even considered for non-accessory signage. I think with the addition of the same limitations, other than that, so that the uses be limited to uses that are accessory to the golf course, and that you'll come back to us with a specific plan on the signage.
If I could make one comment with respect to James E. Stewart, we're also going to be building a new recreation center on the west side of Frederick Douglass, and our thought is to do a sign that would promote both the golf course and the new rec center.
That would be an accessory sign.
Okay.
They're both on the same property.
Okay.
So you're good with that?
Okay.
Okay. So is there anybody else here today who wants to be heard on item number 13? If not, I'll take a motion.
I move approval of item 13 with the aforementioned changes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 13 with the modifications listed. Cast your votes, please. It's approved.
Item 14 is PUD 1719, application to rezone Early Wine Golf Course.
Again, this is very much the same kind of application, and I would think that the same sort of modifications would apply. Is there anybody else here today who wants to be heard on item number 14? I don't have anyone signed up. Commissioners, I'll take a motion.
Move approval of item 14 with the aforementioned changes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 14 with the same modifications that we had listed previously. Cast your votes, please. It is approved. Item number 15, PUD, oh my gosh, you're leaving. Item number 15, PUD 1720, application by the City of Oklahoma City to rezone 4491 Lake Hefner Drive from the R1 Single Family Residential District to the PUD 1720 District. This is Ward 1. This may be the only one of these that is a little bit different in the sense that it is, it has, the signage is more visible from nearby residential areas than the others, it seems to me. So the question of whether it is appropriate for EMD signage is perhaps more in play. However, I would be, as for me, I would be satisfied to see that also determined at specific plan stage, if it's agreeable to you.
Yes.
So I think with that, small caveat, it would be the same modifications otherwise as the others. Is there anybody here today who wants to be heard on this item? If not, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to approve item 15 as stated.
Second.
A motion is second to approve item number 15, adding to the other modifications listed on the other items that will determine whether or not this sign should be EMD at the time we look at the specific plan. Would you cast your votes, please? Did I ask if there's anybody else here who wanted to be heard? There's not anybody else who wanted to be heard. It is approved.
Item 16, PUD 1721, application by the city to rezone 2301 Southeast 29th Street. That is Trosper Golf Course.
This is, yes, another one of those golf course things. Is there anybody present who wants to be heard on this item? If not, I'll take a motion.
I move approval of item 16 with the changes in the previous items.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 16 with the same modifications made to the others. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Item 17, PUD 1723, application by 3 Jacks LLC to rezone 2528 Featherstone Road.
Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Here with me today is Brad Reed, who is the civil engineer for this project. This is a project that, on behalf of the developer, we had talked to staff about some time ago. The first iteration of it stopped right about here. And the question was asked, could we make it bigger to be able to have better connectivity? And so the client went back to see if he could acquire some additional property, and he was able to do so. And so what the PUD seeks to do is take a portion of the land that is zoned pursuant to PUD 62 that allows for high-intensity commercial, and the PUD that's over here that allows for office, and rezone it for an R1ZL development. This is kind of a concept plan of the entry drive. It's worth noting when you look at the comprehensive plan here, it's under not only the urban low intensity, but also the regional district, in which it's encouraging a multitude of uses, but of note, high-density housing. Staff also notes that we don't acquire and don't intend to develop the piece that fronts Highland Park Boulevard, so that ability to still develop the high-intensity commercial uses along Highland Park Boulevard will still be there. Presumably having a development like this to put further rooftops on the ground will assist in getting there. So I believe that when you look at the density pattern in this area, there are apartments north of us, single family to the south of us. It feels like a natural progression in density. Staff recommends approval. There is one TE that we do agree to. Yeah, one TE that we do agree to. We'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioners, do we have any questions of the applicant? No? Is there anybody present who wants to be heard on this item? If not, I'll take a motion.
I'll move approval on PUD 1723.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 17. Would you cast your votes, please? It is approved.
Thank you. And for purposes of the record, my USGA golf index is currently trending at a 7.7. So.
It's good to see that sitting on those benches hasn't warped your sense of humor.
Next item is item 19. It's PUD SP 1550B, application for a specific plan pursuant to the approval of PUD 1550, located at 630 North Kelly Avenue.
Good afternoon, Tim Johnson with Johnson & Associates here on behalf of the applicant. So this is our third project for Paige Woodson. The first project was the upper northeast corner of the property under PUD 1550, the original school and the new building next to it. The second project was north of 6th Street, and it was done in two phases. Both had site plan approvals. And now we're on the west side of High, east of Kelly, in the north half of that block that says 1550 there is the plan. Similar to the somewhat modern-looking structures on the north side of 6th, these buildings will be in line with those, with very simple finishes in line with that and matching some of the brick colors of the school. These are three-story apartments. The site is a difficult site. It falls radically from High to Kelly. And it's very narrow, as you can see by this plan. I've got this upside down. Sorry. There we go. So it's narrow from about what 5th Street would be north to 6th Street, and so the limitation of where to put the parking versus the buildings was restricted because we want to share this High Street parking. And as part of this project, High Street today currently does not go through. It will go through as a private street, and 5th Street will go through as a private street, and this portion of High is already private. So although it won't be gated off, it's just going to be privately controlled and maintained. They anticipate High will be an opportunity to close off and do entertainment for the district and different events along that area. So
With that, the staff had a comment about the trash enclosures. We are working with them to work that out before we get a permit. Other than that, we're good to go.
And so the reduction on the height from 5 to 3, is that right? Wasn't it originally permitted to be 5 stories?
I don't recall 5.
I thought I remembered reading that.
The tallest we have is 4, and that's the existing school.
Okay. Height regulations. Proposed residential structures are proposed to be 3 stories, which is less than the permitted 5, it says.
There we go.
Okay.
I was like 20 when we wrote that, Pud.
I see that there is no one else here who wishes to be heard on this item today. Do we have any questions of our applicant? If not, I'll take a motion.
I move approval of item 19.
Second.
The motion and a second to approve item number 19. Seems like the least we can do after you've sat here all this time.
Thank you very much.
It is approved. Commissioners. Oh, I've already made my speech, so I don't have to do that. Let's do this quickly here. Planning Commission committees, we don't have any. Planning Commission members, anybody have anything they want to say? No, speak now or forever hold your peace. Planning Department, you get to say no twice. Development Services Department. Municipal Counselor's Office. You've had enough to say today. Citizens to be heard. Other business. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay.